10 minutes past 8 o'clock. It is Thursday morning, the 18th day of September, 2025. Good morning, everybody. I'm Scott Micklin. Thanks for tuning in to KSJE 90.9 FM over the airwaves here in San Juan County, New Mexico. In Durango, Colorado, we're broadcasting as, hopefully you know, 103.3 FM. And if you're listening to my voice anywhere else on the planet, you've gone to our website to listen, ksje.com, or maybe you're listening through the new KSJE app. I also want to welcome our viewers this morning who are joining us, the video streaming out live to the KSJE Facebook page and also to our YouTube channel. So thank you all for joining me this morning, because coming up, my guest from San Juan County, we're going to be talking about some of the recovery efforts. This is Recovery Month and also Suicide Prevention Month. So some of the things that the county does for all residents of San Juan County. Stay tuned for that coming up in the next few moments right here on KSJE. Then later on this hour, we'll be talking about the Miss Indigenous pageant that's coming to San Juan College next week. You'll learn about the details about that coming up later on, 8:50 a.m. on KSJE this morning. Next hour, of course, Mick Hess, Roving with the Arts. He will be playing classical music for us after the news, beginning at 9:06. A reminder, you could also connect with KSJE on other social media platforms like Instagram and Blue Sky and X, in addition to Facebook and YouTube. And our KSJE podcasts available wherever you're listening to podcasts. So subscribe and discover a new local program that you may have missed. And there it is, the new KSJE radio app, available to download now from the App Store or Google Play. Stay connected, on the go. Listen live, check out our podcasts, and much, much more with the KSJE app. Outside our studios here at San Juan College, it is currently 53 degrees at the moment. We're expecting a mostly sunny day today with a high near 79 degrees. Tomorrow, though, cooler weather with a 50% chance of showers in the forecast for Friday. The high of 73 tomorrow. Sunshine 76 on Saturday, 78 on Sunday, back up to 80 with sunshine by Monday. And overnight lows, though, as you can see, getting cooler in the mid to lower 50s. I'll be back with my guest from San Juan County right after this on KSJE. KSJE is supported by San Juan Regional Medical Center. The caregivers of San Juan Regional Medical Center are committed to bettering the quality of life, health, and care of individuals, families, and our communities. Life is their sacred trust. Better is their mission. Here is their home. San Juan Regional Medical Center, improving the health of the Four Corners since 1910.
Now back to Studio A and the award-winning Scott Micklin Morning Program on KSJE.
Welcome back, everyone. This morning, my guest from San Juan County, a familiar voice and face to listeners of KSJE, Megan Cullip, is here with me this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to have you here.
Happy to be here.
In your capacity as the San Juan County, Community Health and Social Services Director.
Yes.
Welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
And that is your day job, as they say.
Yes, indeed.
And so you work a lot, I know, with individuals around the county. You worked at the Community Wellness Center.
Well, so it's the Navigation Center.
Now it is.
Yes, now
right.
it is.
Yes,
I know we did
you.
have a name change in January just
Right.
to kind of make it easier for folks to know
Exactly.
more about what we do. So,
But those services have kind of been evolving, I think, over time.
I think for sure over time.
Yeah.
Because the inception of the Mental Wellness Resource Center, which is what we used to be called, it started in 2020. And,
Right.
like every new project, over time you realize more and more
Sure.
about what's needed and so how to help.
And baby steps, and then as you
Right.
see what's needed, you can maybe expand, and as funding becomes available, I mean, there's that part of it too. And so today at the Navigation Center, though, there's a lot more, I think, that's being offered to the community, and folks that show up in need of services can get connected, I think, fairly quickly, which is kind of the goal.
Yeah, that's the goal. So, when people are in crisis, this is kind of how I explain it. Even people who have had a lifetime of maybe, I mean, some people are lucky, right? And they have a lifetime of support, and they've had experiences being able to help themselves, and, and they have like this, it's a skill set, really.
Sure.
And then there's a lot of people that just haven't had the chance to acquire the skill set that's needed to find the right help. And so that's why we exist. And we see all sorts of problems come in because we're kind of this catch-all, and, we certainly cannot always fix what comes in, but we do our best to address what's happening, and we do our best to try to help people move from point A to point B, and so that's what we exist for.
Nice. But the idea that we actually have a place where people can go and at least talk to somebody or at least try to see what's available, that is kind of what's new.
Yes.
In the community.
Yes, it was identified there was a behavioral health gap analysis is what it was called that was executed in either 2018 or 2019. I can't quite remember the exact
around
date,
that time, by the county.
Around that
and
time.
Kudos to them.
Yeah, it was funded by the county. The county commission was really the one that put that into play, and it highlighted a few things that were absent from the community as it pertains to community health. And one of those items was a central location for connections and resources and case management and things like that.
Got you. And that's what we have. And that's what started with that mental wellness center and then is now grown into the navigation center.
Correct.
And just for folks who are joining us, if they haven't heard where it is, but I hope they know where it is, but it's located over on the west side of Farmington, but it's this kind of central location, at least for folks coming in from all parts of the county, correct? Over on either West Broadway or Murray Drive. You can get to it either way.
You can get to it either way, and it's located within the Presbyterian Medical Services campus, which on that campus there are two buildings. One is medical dental, and the other is what they would call the Behavioral Health Building, or the Farmington Community Health Center is actually what it says in the building. And we're in the back. And that location is great because Presbyterian Medical Services is a very important provider in our community, but also it is located near a lot of the other resources that this population might take advantage of. So,
right.
Yeah.
So if somebody shows up and says, I am in crisis or I need to talk to somebody, usually if you can help them, that help is literally down the hall or down the sidewalk or whatever, pretty close proximity to where they are.
Right, yeah, depending on, of course, what it is. But yeah.
Sure, true. And as I mentioned, this is Suicide Prevention Month, and so that's another thing that I know you and your colleagues work with and help people with and things like that. I think that's always important to remind people that if folks are thinking about that, there is help available in the community. There's a hotline available. Folks can call and be connected right away with someone on the other end of that phone 24 hours a day. I think that's really important for folks to know as well.
Sure. Yeah. So thankfully, there's been a lot of burgeoning resources coming up because suicide is unfortunately very prevalent. I always say that, most people are either first, second, or third degree connected, right? It's very rare that somebody chooses it in their own life and there's not a large ripple effect. And so this is where 988 was born, which, of course, is very easy to remember. It's like 911, but it's 988, which is for like a psychiatric crisis. And that is a 24/7 lifeline when a sort of immediate human connection might not be available in that moment.
Right.
988 is, and it is a human on the other line that has been trained in crisis intervention.
Sure,
So,
but 24 hours a day.
24
7
hours
days
a
a
day.
week, right?
7 days a week,
And that's what's so
yeah.
important that, these individuals could be having these thoughts anytime, and the fact that there is someone available anytime, I think is important.
Yeah.
And so here in San Juan County, again, as with the work that you are doing, if somebody shows up and says, I've had these thoughts about maybe suicide or what have you, you can find them some resources here.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So we have, so like most communities in the nation, mental health resources are kind of stretched.
Right.
That's not to say that we don't have any, though.
Right.
And thankfully, through a grant with the state of New Mexico, it's called the Behavioral Health Investment Zone Grant, which is really what's undergirding a lot of the work we do. And through that grant, we were able to partner with two specific mental health agencies that can provide us with one crisis appointment a week. So if somebody does come in immediate crisis, we can connect them with an immediate crisis response. PMS has launched their mobile crisis unit, and so they can respond. So I would say it's a work in progress, but there is help available.
Right.
So that's good.
That's important, because in other communities it may be that help's available, maybe not quick help or not within a week or something like that. Maybe you've got to wait a month for an appointment or something like that.
Right, and it is definitely important to say that if you're in immediate crisis, there is an emergency room.
Yes.
And that should always be an option on the table.
Right.
And depending, and it's a spectrum, so depending on where you're at, some people, even though it's not ideal, maybe can wait a month. But if we're talking about an immediate psychiatric crisis, an emergency room is an option while we wait for another resource that is coming in the near future, which is the Crisis Triage Center, which will be a place specifically for a psychiatric crisis.
Right. And that's for suicide or any other type of crisis, right? Or psychiatric crisis, as
Yeah.
you're talking about, right?
Yeah, so somebody can be in active psychosis and either get themselves there, or maybe a loved one can get them there, or law enforcement can bring people there in a very non-punitive way, just sort of like, hey, I see that you're struggling, let me take you to this place. Nobody's in trouble here, but we have this resource for you. And so that would be huge, because, the ER, though helpful, not an ideal place
Right.
for what's going on. So.
And busy and crowded.
Busy, crowded, a lot of different issues that they're trying to handle, and so,
Right.
yeah.
And that brings up a lot of other points that I want to kind of dig into and unpack a little bit, too, because you talked about law enforcement, and I think there's a lot of partners with these projects, from law enforcement, the hospital, PMS you've mentioned, the city, the county, all these folks kind of working together for these things, or I don't think they would happen if you didn't have all that buy-in from these folks.
Yeah, so great point. So we are very fortunate in that our community consistently works together on many different issues, and certainly with the Crisis Triage Center, that is the case. The last time we hosted a meeting about it, we had multiple providers, law enforcement was there, City of Bloomfield, City of Aztec, City of Farmington, and then of course the county, and the hospital.
Right.
And so we have all of these entities, not just pulling their sort of expertise together, but also pooling their hard resources together, which is very similar to what we do with the expansion shelter, which is same thing, 7 days a week shelter for adults who can just come. It's an overnight shelter, so
Right.
it's 7 to 7. But that shelter is funded by City of Farmington, hospital, and the county, and everybody's pooling their resources together to make that happen. So we're very fortunate that nobody is shouldering the burden alone.
Right.
So.
Very true. And that's another PMS program, if
It
I'm not
is,
mistaken,
yes.
too. So they're part of this as well.
And PMS, right, of course, yeah.
But it's, again, you're right. It wouldn't happen, I think, if PMS had to do it on its own. And I'm a board member of PMS, full disclosure. So I don't think that they'd be able to do it on their own. They'd want
No.
to, but it's great to have the buy-in from the
Right,
others.
right.
And that law enforcement component, I think, is important, too, because in the past, I think, maybe if someone was in crisis and police came upon them, they'd just say, this person is just out of control, let's take them to jail.
Right.
And they're not going to get any resources, probably, or less, in jail.
Less, right.
And now there's been some training, I think, and some education for police officers and sheriff's deputies and others to say, when you approach a person and this is happening, maybe another option might be take them to a center, or take them for some counseling, or take them someplace where they can get help that's not jail. Because they're
Right.
not really breaking the law, perhaps, they're just in crisis.
Right, and or they might be breaking the law, but it's a non-violent offense. It's that they're having a crisis outside of 7-Eleven, and that's loitering or
Sure.
sleeping on a public street or something, and it's not ideal. But yes, a lot of these law enforcement officers have received a lot of mental health training in the recent years, and so there is a more robust understanding of what psychosis looks like and hardship looks like versus what a dangerous person looks
Right.
like, and the difference between the two. So
Sure.
Yeah.
But that taking someone to jail is maybe not the best option in some
It's
of these
not.
cases, right?
No, and there's a huge amount of folks that are currently incarcerated that have these struggles, and that is what we're trying to prevent.
Right.
So
Exactly. Because I think, too, when you look at the money side of things, all those things going to the emergency department, going to jail, I think the costs are probably a lot more
Astronomical.
than it would be than just to get someone some counseling or some assistance that way instead.
Totally. I
right?
mean, absolutely. So the CTC by no means is a cheap endeavor,
Right.
but you are correct that rotating in and out of the ER for sure is more expensive. Rotating in and out of the detention center is for sure more expensive, and that's just not good for the individual. So
Right.
it's both of those things. It's a financial burden on society, and it's a burden on an individual who's sick.
Right.
So,
Which I think is why we see more of the buy-in from the other governmental entities and others when they can see maybe in black and white the numbers, because a lot of times it comes down to budget sometimes and says, if we do this, it will save X amount of dollars over 5 years, 10 years, whatever. Or if we keep doing what we've been doing with jail and emergency room, it's going to cost a lot more.
right.
So that's at least what I've been learning
Yes.
about this as well, which I think is great. You also mentioned the crisis triage center, which is another, I think, growth of this program that you're currently working with, and that's kind of the next thing, which is exciting to be able to provide almost. Well, I think it does plan to provide emergency counseling 24 hours a day. That's kind of the idea, I think, to start maybe during the business hours or daytime hours.
Yeah.
But grow from there. Is that kind of the idea where things are at?
Yeah, we're definitely trying to figure the ins and outs of that out. So,
Sure.
I mean, you
Well,
know,
you need staff, and that's
you need
hard
staff.
to find, right, sometimes?
yeah, and specifically you need medical staff, and so, it could be hard to find higher level medical staff, so nurse practitioner, psychiatrist, or somebody at that level
Right.
can be, difficult to find, and so you definitely need that in addition to a social worker, a therapist, whatever, so.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's what you're working on, I know,
Right.
and I think, again, county, PMS, cities, other folks too.
Yeah.
Hospital, all
Right.
part of this project, so that's great. Another thing that we wanted to put on our list to talk about this morning is kind of recovery and recovery month, and so again, this is another thing that I think people struggle with is addiction and how to recover from that and break that habit, which is easier said than done in many, many, many cases.
Sure. So there is, similar to suicide, a lot of variables that lead people down this path, so it's difficult in that sense, in that we've never been able to identify one variable that explains to us why somebody gets addicted to fentanyl or whatever it is.
Sure.
There are many reasons why somebody would become addicted to a substance. And of course, at some point, I mean, this starts as a more sort of psychological decision. It's what you're thinking and what you're feeling. And then once you engage in that behavior, it becomes also a physiological thing in that it hooks your body. So now your mind is hooked, but so is your body on a very medical level. And, your body craves this substance and whatever. And it impacts sort of, you sort of undulate between, withdrawal and then seeking it, and then withdrawal and then seeking it. And it gets very difficult. And so thankfully, there is something called medication-assisted treatment that finally the medical community has gathered around and said, this is a good thing, we should do this. And what that is it's medication-assisted treatment, meaning somebody who's willing to engage in that can be given medicine to help ease what's going on in their body while they deal with what's going on in their mind. And so it's much easier to adhere to therapy or some sort of like psychological intervention when your body is being taken care of. And they're using medicines that have very, very minimal side effects. For most people, there's no side effects that will sort of take the place of that drug and bind to those receptors, they would say, in the brain, and so that you can take like a naltrexone, which is for alcohol addiction, and it would remove some of that body response so that you can then focus on taking care of your mind.
Right.
So that's
And that's relatively new type of treatment?
It's kind of
New-ish?
new. I would say it's new-ish, yeah.
Okay.
Because it took a while for people to, A, understand what was happening, and then, B, kind of gather around this idea, because for a long time addiction was still fundamentally understood as like a moral failing. And now that idea has has changed.
Evolved a little
Yeah,
bit,
evolved.
sounds like, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. And so with that, I guess, then there's better outcomes, hopefully, with
Way
this type
better
of treatment, with
outcomes.
both the physical and mental approach?
Way better outcomes. And thankfully, we have quite a few medication-assisted treatment providers in town. And,
that's good.
you know, quite a few of them, if not all of them, are, you can walk in and say, this is what's going on.
Okay.
Help me out. And they will get you on the right sort of program for you.
Right.
And so that's huge. That's a big deal.
Very much so. And again, there is still this stigma, I think. I think it's getting better about mental health and things like that, and seeking help if we feel we're having a crisis or a mental health issue. And I think it's getting better. I don't know. Do you see that in your work as well, or is there still that stigma about coming forward and admitting that maybe, I need some help, or I need to see someone, or help me figure out what's going on?
Definitely still a stigma. So, I mean, if you look at it like, diabetes is a common example, just because that's also a chronic illness, right?
Sure.
You would never tell somebody who is diabetic, who is having a sugar crash, like, well, just get over it, right? Or like make a better choice, right?
Right,
when they're having
right.
like an actual sort of the sugar's dropping, they need a banana or whatever they need to take care of that, or insulin or whatever. You would never look at those people and say, get over it. And you would never look at those people and say, well, it's your moral failings and it's your poor decision process that's making you like that, right? But certainly, like when we look at people with schizophrenia or mood disorders or things like that, it's like, well, change your behavior. Like, what's going on?
Right. Just do it. Why can't you just do it?
Why can't you just get up and do it?
Yeah.
Right? That's still very much an issue.
And you're saying it's similar to the diabetic who just can't get up and do it. It's for
Right.
someone having a mental crisis, they can't just change it.
No,
Maybe
they-
as much as they'd want to.
Right. Yeah. No, they need support to change it. The diabetic has insulin. The person with mental illness has whatever medication, right? And it's equally as necessary for their health and well-being as the insulin is. And that kind of, if people thought of it in that paradigm, I think that stigma would start to diminish. But I mean, is it getting better? Sure, for sure. But is it where it needs to be? I don't think so. No. Yeah.
Right. But I think we're getting there. I think there is certainly improvement, and I think I say that because of the resources that are available now. There seems to be more resources and more demand for those resources, and so that to me is a positive sign that people are seeking help.
Yeah, there definitely is a high demand for resources, so people are seeking help. But yeah, it's a complex issue for sure.
For sure. True.
Yeah.
And we only have 30 minutes, so
Yeah.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But for family members and friends, I mean, how can they be helpful? I mean, do you have any advice for, folks that are maybe, surrounding people that are maybe in crisis, or maybe they just think something's kind of wrong or something doesn't seem right? Is there a way that other folks could be helpful or try to figure out what's going on
Absolutely.
to try to maybe offer some suggestions?
Absolutely. So human connection is the most important piece of somebody's recovery, right? Partially because, say you do have a chronic mental illness, you will still need help managing that. So, and sometimes the unique thing about mental illness is that it can diminish a person's capacity for self-awareness. It can diminish a person's capacity for rational thinking. And so if you have this support system, you can have somebody say, hey, did you take what you're supposed to be taking this morning? Or, hey, I noticed that you didn't. Is there a reason why? Let's talk about it. Or like what you're talking about, these early warning signs, intervening when those early warning signs happen, because these are progressive illnesses that if you don't deal with those, they call them prodromal symptoms, but if you don't deal with those early warning signs, it's not going to get better. And so, if you see people that are withdrawing, that's a big one. People start talking about dying more, or they might give away possessions, and you're kind of like, that's weird. Like, what caused you to give away that possession? Like, what are you thinking?
Right.
Or of course, just like sadness, but isolation, withdrawal, talking about darker themes more often. These are all early warning signs. Now, I will say that there certainly are people that choose to end their lives and you really have had no idea, right? You never know what's going on in people's minds. And
True.
so there
Sure.
certainly are people that either hide those warning signs or just don't have them. But if you do notice your loved one is acting differently than how, something's changed in them, it's worth investigating that. And it's worth, and a lot of times we just don't want to talk about it, or we think, oh, if we approach them, they're going to be offended, or they're not going to be truthful about what's going on, or whatever.
Or I'm going to damage my relationship with them, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah, that's a big one. I don't want to damage my relationship with them, or I'm too scared to ask the question. That happens all the time. I'm too scared to mention it. It's a topic I don't want to engage in. But definitely, research has shown that it's okay to say, hey, have you thought about hurting yourself? And sometimes when you ask that question directly, it's easier for that person or it always is, to self-disclose. Because oftentimes people are kind of walking around hoping somebody will ask those questions, so it's easier for them to self-disclose. And so it's okay to talk about these things, and human connection is important to everybody's lives, and it's certainly important to both recovery from drugs and alcohol, but also mental illness is frequently seen in that recovery light too, and that you can live a fulfilling life, but it's going to be a little more difficult.
Yeah.
And the more support you have, the better.
Very true. And so for the people around these individuals, they really need to find the strength in themselves to ask that question.
100%. And we're doing trainings. There's a couple of trainings that exist that are designed for, lay people that are not mental health professionals, to have those conversations. One is called QPR, Question, Persuade, Refer, and that's just a simple sort of conversational protocol that you can do with anybody that you see might be struggling. And so we're actively trying to, train teachers and folks like that. But anybody can be trained in those types of things. And so there are resources to learn how to have those conversations. But you're absolutely right. Unless those conversations are being had, we're going to lose a lot more people that maybe that could have been prevented.
Right. And again, it's still important, I think, for folks to understand that, the individual kind of has to want this assistance and want to go into treatment or what have you. They really can't be signed up without their
Absolutely.
against their will, I guess is what I'm trying to say,
Yeah.
right? They have to have a buy-in to this as well in order for it to be effective, I would think.
Sure. Well, yes, there's always the human element, I call it, right? So when we're in the business I'm in, I broke it down into two components. So there's resources, right?
Sure.
So that is funding, that is whatever, having a building, having all those things. And then there's the human element. And the human element, 10,000 times more complex, because some people, when they're ready and you can meet them there, that's the sweet spot. But to your point, they have to be ready. And if they're not ready, it's not going to go anywhere.
Right.
But the more consistent support you show, the more likely that they're eventually going to become ready. When somebody, for example, say you're ready you need to go to the crisis triage center, but two scenarios. One scenario is, I have to get myself there and walk in and go through that whole process, or my loved one takes me there and stays with me through that whole process. Very different.
Yeah,
and you'll
right.
have very different outcomes.
True.
So
very true. And when I guess someone walks through that door, no matter how they got there, whether on their own or with a friend, that's a big step, just coming through the door, is it not?
A huge step.
Admitting that maybe something's not right and I need to reach out and see if these other folks can help me.
Huge step. Yeah. No, and that is the step because of the stigma, it's hard to take that step. But I've found that people, I've had many conversations with people. They're like, I've never had this problem, and I'm such a strong person, and all this stuff. And then they take advantage of the resource, and they're like, wow, I'm so glad I did that.
Yeah.
So
lots of great success stories, which is great. And so happy that we have these resources available and that we have a place like the Navigation Center where folks can come and find answers to a lot of these questions, because it's more than just mental health. That's a big component of it, but I think also if folks need medical care or dental care or whatever, the Navigation Center can help with those things too.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that mental health certainly undergirds most of the struggles we see.
Sure.
like I can't keep my job because I have these symptoms going on and it's hard to function at work, and then because I couldn't keep my job, I have to pay the rent and I can't pay the rent, or maybe you are chronically sick and you just don't have a doctor, and so you're not going to feel very good in your head if your body just doesn't feel good, right?
True. It's all connected.
It's all connected, or you never finished your GED and that makes it hard to, get a career, and then you're not stable. So all these things, that's what I mean by variables, right?
Yeah,
There's
right.
so many variables involved, and they're all interconnected.
True. That's true.
Yeah.
And you can help with all of it, it seems to me, or at least find people that
We
can.
certainly can find people who can, and we certainly can do what we can to do our best to try to help.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, it's great, and it's great work that's being done. Kudos to San Juan County again for that needs assessment and acting upon it too. I mean, not that they got the data and said, "Well, it'd be nice if we could do something." They actually sought out, I think, funding and put together these things, and now we have the Navigation Center, which helps with all these things, and there's more to come.
Right.
It sounds to me. Again, I'm trying to think of the address, and I'm
1001 West Broadway.
Thank you. That's the official address. But
Yeah.
again, you can get there from Murray Drive as well. And it's there on the west side of town. And it's great work that you do and your team.
Yes, my team is awesome.
Well, I have a good leader, I think.
Well, it's the
but-
team.
Yeah. All right. Megan Cullip, my guest this morning from San Juan County. Thank you for coming in and talking about the work that you do and your team. Again, she is the Community Health and Social Services Director for San Juan County. And we'll see you again soon.
Great. Yeah. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow in a different capacity.
Yes.
Very good. Thanks, Megan.
Thanks.
Megan Cullip from San Juan County, my guest here on KSJE.
The artificial intelligence industry is taking a page out of crypto's